What's up you guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Today we're going to be doing another r/ultimate revenge challenge. I don't know why I call it r/ultimate revenge challenge when it's just ultimate revenge challenge. Technically I've been calling it ultimate revenge fresh challenge since I got the idea from fresh. Oh, whatever. The main thing is we're doing an r/petty revenge, an r/ProRevenge, an r/Nuclearrevenge, and the almighty, once again, big mammo jammo r/SuperNovaRevenge. Let's get into the r/petty revenge with ride my butt, get pulled over. So this happened a while ago, but I still laugh about it. I was on my way home from a pretty major state route where their speed limit was 55 until you go through a town and it can drop down to 45, sometimes 30. In this story, it drops down to 45. So I was coming down a pretty significant hill, and we all know that vehicles pick up speed while going down. As I came down the hill, I started braking since the town had a speed limit of 45. The guy behind me did not like that. He was on my butt so incredibly bad, I could count the whiskers on his face. As I went through town, I had to pass the fire department, and sitting in the opposite side of the road was a state trooper. Cue petty revenge. As I drove past the state trooper, I gestured to the cop to look behind me. I didn't think anything would happen because who's that lucky? Apparently, me. I kept watching my rear view mirror, and roughly about a mile out of town, the a-hole behind me got pulled over. Thank you, New York State Trooper. This is the revenge every driver wants. Whenever they see someone's on their butt, they're like, oh, why can't there be a cop right now behind me? This guy got that wish. He took everyone's luck on the highway. I'm not gonna lie, when people start to ride my butt whenever I'm driving, I start to go like 15 underneath the speed limit. Like, usually I'll go like 5 over, but if I'm doing that, if I'm doing like 5 or 10 over and you ride my butt, we're slowing down. Either that or I'll go the same speed as the car that I can get next to. Not if I have people in the car with me, just if I'm by myself. I don't want to get anyone else into danger. But I'm just too passive aggressive to let that kind of stuff get by. Alright, on to the ProRevenge. And before I read these ProRevenge and Nuclearrevenge, I've actually noticed that the people that moderate ProRevenge and Nuclearrevenge take off 90% of the stories and don't let most of them get posted. Like, the newest stories are always like a week out because they don't allow, subpar stories to come through, and that's why you see a lot of people reading the same ProRevenge and Nuclearrevenge. Like, there hasn't been any for the new ones in this past week, so like any new ones that come up, people will read them, and that's what everyone's going to be hearing. But during these Ultimate Revenge Challenge, we try to go through and pick some of the short ones, just because the SuperNovaRevenge is supposed to be the bread and butter of this event, not some little ProRevenge. Stealing my notes? Guess who won't graduate high school? I first posted this in Nuclearrevenge, though I think it's not that drastic, so I thought here was more fitting. So this happened in 2018 when I graduated high school. A quick overview of the Swiss school system. Normally, you go through school until 9th grade. If you want to go to university later, you can change your grammar school from 8th to 12th grade. I decided to study and went to high school. Also, in Switzerland, my state canton at least, everything under a 75% is a fail. We have a really strict thing going on there. There, I quickly became friends with Chelsea, now my girlfriend, and Alicia. Alicia is the kind of person that is funny if you don't have her around too much. She is always the victim, she can only talk about herself, etc. But if you spend too much time with her, you are a mess. She is never responsible for things that happen with her because she grew up in foster care system, whatever. So this happened about 2 months before our finals. Now, graduating means passing the finals obviously, but not only them, the finals are half of your eventual grade. The other half is your last report card. If I had an A on my final English exam, but a C in my last report card, my eventual grade would become a C. What? I mean a B, and so on. Sorry guys. Alicia really struggled with that because her report card wasn't that good. She had to excel in most of the subjects to graduate. So you would think she'd write as many notes as possible and study pretty early, right?
Nope.
She procrastinated until 2 months before our final exams, when I and Chelsea studied our butts off. Now, I was always a girl who offered her notes in our class group chat in case someone was interested. This gets important later. We had a fairly long list of things that we would be able to use in the maths, and I wrote notes for every single topic and kept in a folder in my locker. Only put some of them in the group chat just when someone was asking about a certain topic. One day, I went to my locker and they weren't there. I was freaking out. I spent weeks on writing them. I looked for them an entire week and approximately 3 panic attacks because I thought I wouldn't pass now and had to do them all over again. That's when Alicia casually told me she took them the other day when I asked her to get a book from my locker. She actually hadn't planned to tell me it because it's not like you need them anyways, you had them long enough. If you didn't make copies, it's not my fault. The blatant entitlement was enough for me to come up with a plan. A vicious plan. Not only had she stolen my notes, if I hadn't bothered her so much with it, she wouldn't even have told me she had taken them. And she was only a high school friend anyway, and I knew I'd never do anything with her again once we graduated. So frankly, I didn't give a single duck about what would happen to her. Her entitled self-centered way was enough for me to finally burst. I apologize for making drama. It's okay, you're just like that sometimes. I was about to lose it, and just continued my school day. Now, Alicia kept calling me about the notes, etc. even before that, especially my notes for various books. She'd chosen the same books so she didn't have to study extra. I started giving her a wrong analysis into fake notes. Obviously, enough to figure out they were wrong if she'd think herself, but not too obvious. If she read the books, she would have known it was BS. I did the same with our English books, and French. She already had my math notes too, I couldn't fake those. But I could fake German, French, English, chemistry, physics, and psychology. Now, after I had invested so much in faking notes, I watched it all go down for a day before graduation. We went to a pub with our teacher to watch a football game, I don't even remember, and she distributed our results. I passed with a 5.38. In Switzerland, the grades are from 1 to 6. 6 is the best, so about an A. And Alicia went pale, 3.21, a D minus. She had failed all of her classes but maths and psychology. Oops, it seems she really read my notes. She didn't read the books she was supposed to read. She didn't read our textbooks. I had to hide a grin. My girlfriend thinks to this day it was cruel, but seriously, it was a damper for her entitlement and narcissism. From what I heard, she is currently trying to repeat the year and try again, hopefully without stealing her friend's notes. Edit, thank you to everyone that explained the difference between a cup and a mug. Edit 2, many people are asking me, and no, I don't regret it. To pass her finals, she had to study and read her French, German, and English books. The task was not just to read the notes and BS her way through them. The language finals were done orally. If she had read the books, she would have known my notes were not correct. So honestly, her fault. Ooh, that sucks. But that's kind of what she deserves. You can tell that this person was a big jerk to everyone around them, was just like a giant black hole of negative energy. This is one of those friends that you're around sometimes because you can just like barely stand them and you just want someone else to be there with your group, but you wouldn't be upset if they just left and never came back. To be fair, in high school, I never studied. I don't think I studied once, ever. I just kind of learned what I learned in class and I just used whatever I learned in class to pass. I have kind of good memorization of watching someone talk, but like reading through stuff is just like not my stuff. Studying is just, it hardly works for me. I don't know why. So I kind of just skipped over that portion in school and it all just kind of worked out. I'm not saying if you're in high school do this. That's not a good idea. If you can do that, I mean, hey, more free time. But if you can't, just study the notes. It's fine. On to the Nuclearrevenge, which is sadly only just a barely bit smaller than that last one. These stories are always like a little bit longer than normal. Also, I'm like gonna be blurring out and not saying any of the like quote unquote bad words because our videos are getting demonetized and you know that's just not working out for me. So I'm sorry if you guys wanted to see these totally dirty, disgusting words, but just trying to imagine them there, okay? Alright, Nuclearrevenge time. Assistance from HE double hockey sticks. Let me preface this by saying I'm still going through some mental issues because of what happened in this story. Background, I was born with cataracts that later became glaucoma when I turned 5. After some years, something happened that caused me to lose all my vision in my left eye. This meant that I needed an assistant for the rest of my education. Now that you're all informed, the story. When I was starting middle school, my parents found an assistant to help me move around my school. I'll call her Ella for simplicity's sake. Anyway, Ella's friendly to me and my parents, so they didn't have to worry. Ella did her job and she was friendly with me. And then it began. One day, Ella didn't come to school. She called my dad saying she got in an accident on the road. It was fine. She got in an accident. It wasn't her fault. I spent the first 2 weeks of school trying my darndest to explain why I couldn't write the work and give a convincing argument, and walk around without bumping into every wall in person. On top of that, Ella became more and more hostile as the months went by. She then began telling me awful things about my appearance, my personality, and she talked junk about me and my parents to other teachers who were just as scummy as her. The only reason why I didn't say anything is because she made me think that doing so would get me expelled. And me being stupid 13-year-old, I believe her. Needless to say, I was miserable. The straw that broke the camel's back was the day where she was so angry that she slapped me. I was done. The revenge. I told my dad about everything. The absences, the slander, everything. When I told him, he went absolutely ape poo-poo. And we went straight to the principal. After telling her everything that happened, we found out that Ella was present to write herself up as president, but she had never arrived to help me. We also found out she had faked most of her reasons for absence. After a long investigation that took 2 years to actually prove, we took Ella to court. I only had to testify every single detail which she did and what she said Long story short, we won the case and Ella went to prison for 3 years. After word got out about what Ella did to me, my father heard that her friends and family basically disowned her. She had also lost the remaining custody of her kids, which went directly to her ex-husband, who works for a vendor that passes by my school. Ella became forgotten garbage. It's been almost a year since Ella went to prison, but sometimes I still hear all the terrible things she says. Thanks to her, I'm scared to make decisions because I can't get her words out of my mind. I'm going to start school soon. Maybe I'll finally get the demon woman out of my head. Edit, thank you for the kind words. Honestly, I thought this was going to get ignored. At the time of writing this, I'm going to start my 2nd year of high school. I'm just happy that even strangers on the internet are willing to say such nice things. Thank you all for the support. Edit 2, I've noticed some comments confused about my condition. I'll clarify. To be perfectly honest, I don't really know how it happened. I don't remember since it was a long time, at least for me. After Ella stopped being nice is when I started seriously learning how to use a cane for blind people. Yeah, true, I mean, you're not going to be able to switch from being able to see a little bit to being able to walk around with a cane blind knowing how to use it, right? But dang, screw Ella, that's like the scum of the scum, picking on people that can hardly stick up for themselves. These are the worst type of people to know and be around. And I bet you she picked that jobs just so she can be, like, that's the kind of narcissistic personality trait that people have when they just want to have someone that's small so they can feel almighty and make the other person feel insignificant. It's terrible. But man, 3 years, that's crazy. Like I maybe it's like falsifying documents, because like a slap to the face, like open hand slap, that's assault charge. What is that, like maximum 6 months in jail or something? Dude, there must have been more charges in there than just the slap. Alright, on to the SuperNovaRevenge. Checkmate in double time. I don't know if this is pro or not, but here it goes. Excuses, language, mobile, etc. Once upon a time, when I was in the 8th grade, I had 2 bullies, a kid and a teacher. So let's see the cast. Me, English teacher, bully. So let's go to the story. The plot happened like this. In my school in Puerto Rico, I had a bully that unfortunately was always put into my homeroom. Of 30 students, approximately over and over. And at 8th grade, I had an English teacher that had a lot of errors in grammar and speech. People say I have patience, so it was easy to target me. Do you remember how a rubber band works? That was me. The teacher was yelling at me because I wasn't on the same level as the class and had a different pronunciation as my teacher. Until one day, I waited until after class and I told her that she was doing something wrong in class. So she destroyed my scholarship because she would not give me anything other than a C after the event. So, no music, no money to study, no peace at the house. My parents were abusive in the worst ways, so they stepped it up a notch. My friend started making my bully go against the English teacher, and so I started to do pranks and mess around with all her stuff. Like unfolding the chairs when she would use, hide her key, put menacing notes in her desk and purse, and accrediting the glory to my bully until she became so paranoid in the classroom, but nobody suspects the nice teacher's pet that apologized to the English teacher. One day, I decided to go
coup de grace
and aggravated him until he was yelling at the English teacher and the English teacher was trying to scold and drag him to the principal's. Then, my bully got out of her grasp and started fighting her. So I had a thought. While the commotion was going on, I broke her windows and mirrors in her car with an extra shirt from the gym bag, then used a charge to scratch the paint off and left the shirt on the crime scene. My bully got suspended and banned from most of the schools in my area. My English teacher had a meltdown and was forced to retire while I told her about the whole plan as she deteriorated. Edit 1, she was admitted to a psychiatric institution. Oh my goodness. One thing that still sucks is this guy still has to be in an abusive household. So that sucks, but I mean, at least he could get out some anger on 2 people that definitely deserved it. But man, he ruined her car, he took her job away and sent her to a loony bin and got his bully suspended. He must be like living like he must be the king of his friend group. They must be like, whoa, yeah, there's Jimmy, whoa, he made the English teacher go crazy, go Jimmy, whoa. What do you guys think? Was that a SuperNovaRevenge? Was that a supernova as you expected? Let me know down in the comments. There were some grammatical errors in this that was like, makes you want to pull your hair out. So I didn't exactly read everything word for word, but that's okay. You said I'd never graduate high school, so I gave you my diploma. I don't know if this counts as revenge, but it felt like it to me. I have ADD symptoms that were really bad in high school. So much so that in 10th grade, I had a 1.57 GPA and the mathematical comprehension of an 8th grader. I also have a really bad family life. My dad would take me aside to give me painfully long lectures about how I was useless, wouldn't graduate high school on time, if at all, and that college isn't my future. He said it was important for him to emphasize that I was a waste of a school desk, where there was nothing anyone could do for me. Then, he would force me to drop out of high school when I was 16, A bunch of junk happened after that, including a residential treatment center. But after I was discharged, I was allowed to go back to school. For my junior year of high school, I was enrolled in a self-paced school program. I was also finally put on Vivency? And that was a total lifesaver. I made A's and B's after that. I brought my GPA up significantly. I wanted to say it was a 3.0, but that seemed unlikely. It was at least a 2.9. And I ended up graduating on time. Not only that, I was accepted into 5 colleges I applied to, though I had to write a convincing essay for some of them. In 2013, I was a freshman at Texas State University. There was one thing left to do. I got a copy of my high school diploma in one of those fancy leather book thingies with a fancy gold engraving. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. When I got it, I walked it over to my dad, handed it out to him, looked him in the eyes, and said, "I want you to have this. You were the one person who always believed in me." The look on his face was freaking priceless. TLDR, I have serious ADD, and my dad said I would never graduate high school. I handed him my high school diploma and make him look like an idiot. Top commented, "Success really is the best revenge." Wow, good on him for that. That took like a lot of self-motivation and encouragement. That's like good on him and no one else. Good job, buddy. Not a lot of people can say that they've been like down and out, even like their most critical people might have even been their parents, and then was still able to succeed like he did. Okay, now on to the r/ProRevenge story, going from petty to pro. Landlord made me live in squalor, now she's bankrupt. So here's a story of my previous living situation, which was at best horrendous. I moved into what I thought at the time was a lovely 3 to 4 bedroom house with a nice offset garage and garden, perfect for my family consisting of myself, my partner, and my 3 kids. Well, a few weeks into the move, and the problems started to arise. We moved in just before Christmas, and the weather was awful, torrential rain in fact, which is when I discovered the horrendous leak in my roof. I mean water teeming through the roof, into the walls and down my windows, resulting in all my pots and pans having to sit in my windows to collect said rainwater. We then ended up realizing we had a leak through my roof in my daughter's room after she was awoken by rain dripping on her while she was slept. She was only 2 at the time. We discovered over the course of time when we lived there that electronics had never been checked and often shorted out. The gas pipes under their regulated minimum gauge, and when the heating was on, we couldn't power the gas cooker, vice versa. The decking out of the back was rotten, and when stood on, it just snapped. There was a 4-foot drop underneath this. A gas safety check showed that the combi boiler was broken and condemned, but they still refused to replace it. The heating system could never be switched off, even though it was summer. All of these were reported and promised to be fixed. Over the time, the patio door hinge, which was completely snapped off at the time, we couldn't close it properly or lock it, and we were told it would be fixed. Waited months, and even though I was still paying full rent, it never got fixed. I eventually got fed up and reported it to the local environmental health team. They came to inspect the property and raised concerns over the kitchen floor, which was wrapped in a major trip hazard. We also discovered from the visit that the 4th bedroom, which was in a loft, was illegal due to how it had been done. No insulation, no heating, Dodge electrics. So the local environment health team handed us an order over to the landlord to repair all these in a 3-month period. It didn't get done. The council took the landlord to court for breach, and she ended up having to pay fines and was given another 6 weeks to rectify. A few of the jobs got sorted when I found a new house to move into. 2 years later, I just found out through a close friend the council proceeded to complete the jobs themselves, and the landlord now has been declared bankrupt due to this. Her house is being put up for auction. She will receive nowhere near what she needs to pay off her debts. And she has given up her other house due to bankruptcy laws, meaning she can't own equity, not even a decent car. If she only put the rent I was paying into fixing her house, it wouldn't have gone this far. I'm not sure what happened, but regarding the illegal going-ons, the gas and electrical problems were never properly upkept, but I like to hope that she got punished in some way or form. Wow, what a jerk landlord. That kind of reminds me of my apartments. They suck. The apartment I'm living in, the people up in the office freaking suck. Like, I have so many work orders put in, I still have not seen them. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna make a strongly worded YouTube video on them. No, I'm just kidding. Alright, on to the r/Nuclearrevenge. I got him thrown in jail and ruined his relationship of 5 years. So this will be a short one, so please excuse the grammar issues. The past 2.5 months, I've been in a rehab center. It was supposed to be a 3-month stay, but another resident, let's call him Jerk, decided to fake me out and get me booted from the program. While I was showering, he decided to put a vape in my shorts and get staff to check in my room. I got kicked out, and I thought I was going to get to stay, but that's where the revenge comes in. I knew he had more than just one vape. This dude is a fiend and wouldn't sacrifice his only device to get me out of there. I decided to get even. Before I left, I pulled a stunt. I went to the staff and told him about contacting his girlfriend, whom he had no contact order with. After doing so, I went to the director and told him where Jerk's stash was. I ain't no snitch, but if you screw with me, I'm screwing with you too. The director searched his stash and found a ridiculous amount of contraband. Though I was still kicked out of the program, I got the satisfaction of seeing him cry as he was let out of the building in cuffs with 2 more charges on his head, knowing he won't see the outside world for 2 years or more. Oh my god, she got him thrown in jail for 2 years. I don't see why that guy was trying to set her up though. Like, why were you, what was the point of being a jerk? Now you just got yourself locked up for 2 years. Good job, buddy. You're a genius. Now for the almighty r/SuperNovaRevenge. This better explode my computer when I read this. Like, my computer better explode in front of my face when I read this. Like, the tag is death.
Hello,
like, what? Girl gets revenge on a rapist, his cop's friends, and family. This story may or may not have happened the way I would tell it. I wasn't involved in it, but I got the story from several people who were involved. I had to guess some gaps in the timeline, so it may seem a bit unreal. I couldn't believe it myself at first, but a few good friends told me they were involved, so I guess readers should decide for themselves. I went to a college in the late 1990s, and this story was some urban legend on campus. I thought so myself until I met a few frat girls older than me who swore it really happened. Okay, after this long intro, here's the story. In the early 1990s, this little college wasn't the best. Not at all. Some girls had to pay their tuition and living by working as dancers, or as you might say, adult entertainment industry. There was a guy who would always forget where to stop, harass the girls, touch them where he shouldn't, and you know the type. There were too many of these guys. Usually, the bouncer would cook him out, and everyone but the girls would forget about him. But the girls remembered and hated working when he came in. It could have been all the story, until one day, the guy was too drunk and too stupid. He got himself kicked out again, and thought he would get whatever he wanted anyways. He waited in the parking lot for some girls to finish their shift to get the girl where he wanted, and jump her. Luckily, the bouncer noticed him and told the girls to get out from the back door, and he called the police. Police patrol car came in. The cop said he would talk to the guy, but wouldn't do anything because nothing happened yet. The girls were upset and started talking about that. They found out the guy was kicked from every club in town, even the cheapest, junkiest holes where he paid the girls with drugs, which led to another discovery. The guy was a drug dealer on the street, a real lowlife. The girls decided to protect themselves and ask another student to teach them some self-defense moves. This student, call her Susie, was ex-military, as far as everyone knew. Not because she talked about it, she didn't, but because some students were working in management building, and they found out she was on full scholarship from some government agency, and the government does not just go out and pay anyone. So they figured she did something to earn it. Susie was about 25 at the time, but only started first year, while everyone in that year was 18 to 21. She was doing something else for those many years. Anyway, Susie agreed to teach them. The lesson started, and the third lesson, one of the girls came back with a black eye and told everyone the lesson helped her, as the guy actually jumped her last night, and she managed to escape him. She tried to complain to the police, but had a feeling that they wouldn't do anything. That's how Susie heard the whole story, and decided to put an end to it. She then investigated further on the police detective, found out he had a 20-year-old son, and his brother-in-law was also a cop, uniformed squad policeman. He and his buddies would come to the club, get drunk, harass girls, start fights, get the police called to them, and miraculously get out of it with no charges. Now, the revenge. Susie asked 3 girls to take a night off to help her. That night, they got dressed and went out on the bar downtown. They drank, but not too much, flirted a lot, and made themselves remembered. At 11 p.m. or so, Susie left them in the bar and had a friend drive her to her drug dealer spot. He was still there, getting ready to pack up and go. She went down from the car some distance from him, walked toward his alley like she's drunk. She entered the alley, ignoring him. He came after her, angry, shouting at her to get out. She acted like she wanted to pee, and he probably thought a pretty woman drunk in his alley, maybe this is his chance. He got close to her, and from her hip, she drew a knife and stabbed him right in his neck. He felt like a sack, and while he bled there, she looked for a stash and found it. Took half his drugs and gun. She came over him with the gun and shot him twice in the chest, and one in the head, pro execution style. Then she left the alley back to the car, taking the bloody knife and the gun and the drugs with her. Wait, that's not the end of the story. A couple of weeks passed. She heard the bully's son had entered a club where he found a few of his friends were working that night. She got there before he got kicked out and went for his car. She broke in and left the drugs in the front seat and the gun in the back seat. The knife was thrown, still with bloodstains on it, in the trunk. The gun and knife was now fingerprint clean, of course. Sure enough, police was called, and when they got there, they knew who he was. It was a family matter now. So they just detained him until his father or uncle would get there. The uncle got there first, in his cruise car, and took him aside to have a talk. They walked to his car, where the cop uncle couldn't have not seen the drugs or gun. Sure enough, He flipped his junk on the guy, slapped him in the parking lot where everyone can see the son's still in cuffs. Uncle took the gun and the drugs, wrapped them in an evidence bag, and tossed it in his cruiser. The son was released home to his very angry dad. The uncle got back to the station to find out he was temporarily relieved from duty. The station got 10 phone calls from people who saw him slap him in handcuffs. Big screw up. Worse than that, the next cop who came in with the police car found undocumented evidence in it. Drugs and a murder-related gun. Guess who fingerprints were on the gun? Uncle was now a murder suspect. And the only way he'd get out of it is by telling where the gun really came from. It would still get him fired, but not murder suspect. Or so we thought. They found a knife with the blood in the son's car, except it wasn't the son's. It was registered for the father, the detective. The one that the late drug dealer was his snitch. The one that heard he was murdered and just shrugged and said, nah, another dead piece of junk, no one cares. So now, he was a murder suspect too. Finally, we get to the end. These two corrupted cops went away for a long time. The son didn't have the police protection anymore. For a while, he behaved nice, or didn't get into any troubles, but eventually got back to his old ways. 3 months later, he was charged for assault in a bar and went away for a while too. So as he left after that term to study somewhere else. No one heard from her after that. The girls involved swore to never talk about it. Obviously, they didn't keep it. I met a few of them in a reunion, and over too many happy liquids, they happily remembered how one rapist jerkhole got what he deserved. My god, if that's real, that's crazy. Susie, you murderer. Susie, what? You can't just go around murdering people. Sounds like they were dealing with a really corrupt police force. I wonder if they never would have been corrupt, they never would have all went to jail after that and one ended up dead. That was dumb. You know, I'm not sure if I like that story. I'm not sure if I like r/SuperNovaRevenge. You guys let me know down in the comments. Do you guys like r/SuperNovaRevenge? Was that explosive enough for you? You know, I'm not really sure how I feel right now. Anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like it, don't forget to like it. And if you're not, subscribe. We do videos all the time. If you want to suggest them, suggest it. We take suggestions all the time. If you want more ProRevenge or revenge stories, you can just click up at the top right here. You can watch more revenge stories. Hi, I'm Mr. Reddit Readings, and I just read 4 stories with my mic on mute. Anyways, welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Those stories that I read earlier, good thing that my mic was on mute kinda, because they weren't that good. I picked some different ones. I still didn't read these ones. I never ever read these. I always go with the cold read during the video. We're gonna be doing the ultimate revenge challenge inspired by Fresh. Just like last video, but this time we're going to be adding another sub into the mix. Glenn was like, why don't you include regular revenge, you idiot? No, I'm just kidding. They didn't say all that. But that's a great idea. We're going to read a regular revenge, a petty revenge, a pro revenge, a nuclear revenge, and the almighty r/SuperNovaRevenge. Let's just go ahead and jump into this one. In r/regular revenge, we got Disneyland scam. My girlfriend was going to a dapper day at Disney with some friends. I didn't want to go, mostly because I couldn't until 6 p.m. However, she kept bringing it up, so I decided I was going to surprise her and just show up later that evening. I didn't want to pay full price for the ticket that I'd only be using for a couple of hours. So I headed to Craigslist, never had a bad experience there, said no one ever. I find a legitimate seller willing to meet up at the park. In fact, he's an employee, and I'm getting a pretty good deal. Nothing about this whole transaction seems suspicious, except that at the last minute, he couldn't meet at the park, so I met at his house. Get to the park, scan the ticket to get in, and a giant red light goes off on the machine. Disney employee's like, this ticket has been used already. I'm pissed. So I called the guy, which he told me to do if I had any trouble. No response. In the end, I buy a ticket and get in. It was there at the happiest place on earth that I hatched my revenge. I decided to put on Craigslist an ad of my own. I gave the name of the guy who sold me the ticket, along with his phone number and address. The ad was along the lines of mail for mail, looking for fun. I said that I worked at Disney, gave my favorite characters and movie too. I also said what I'm into, like really into, to send me pics of what you're packing. I refresh the ad every month for 3 months. OMG, I looked under one of these revenge stories and someone was trying to figure out how to get like collect calls to spam people's phone numbers, and some guy was like, no, don't do that, just post an ad on Craigslist and keep refreshing it. People are bound to call them so many times they have to change their phone number. This guy actually went through with that. That's some nice little regular revenge. And apparently what that guy did was very common. My Disney experience said, used to work with the fraud department. These tickets have been sold upwards of 150 times. I could pretty much guarantee you the guy doesn't work for the park. Wow, what does he do? Like dig him out the trash can or something? How does he get these? Okay, anyway, on to the r/petty revenge. I don't know if I mentioned this, but some of these stories are going to be pretty short just because we have to read 5 stories. So they can't be, extra long, triple XL. Okay, r/petty revenge tried to take up an entire train seat, Guess I'm going to have to be your new best friend. I take the train to work every morning. It's nice to sit and have a coffee and get ready for the day on the way in. In the trains, most of the seats will fit 2 people, except for the end carts, which can fit up to 4, and the trains fill up on the way. Usually, people have to stand in the aisle if they have the misfortune of getting on at the later stops. Luckily, I have an early enough stop that there's always seats available. I noticed that there was this guy who was getting on and taking one of the in-car seats and spreading his bag and computer and everything else across the seat so no one else can sit at the end of the car seat. So I've made it my goal every morning to find him on the train, and before he's able to pull all his junk out and spread all over the seat, to sit down right across from him. So far, I'm up to 8 days in a row. Dang, that's pretty petty. That is some petty revenge right there. I'm not gonna lie, if that was me, I would probably do the same thing because sometimes I can get a little bit petty. I would honestly just try to ask them, like, do you mind moving your bag? And if they didn't do that, I would just sit on their stuff and be like, oh, it was a free seat. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know bags got to get their own seat. No, I'm just kidding. On to the r/ProRevenge. This is literally like 30 minutes later. I'm gonna try this thing where I read them, but like a little break in between, because I noticed at the end of the video, like during the end, the last couple stories, I always are like a little bit choppy, so hopefully my reading is better. A lot of people have commented that I need to start reading better, like my reading sucks, or like, you freaking suck, get out of here, quit your YouTube channel. I'm gonna try and make it better, so this is my attempt. Guy tried to screw me over with my apartment damage fees. Backfired on him. I'm a college student, and I desperately needed to find a sublease for the past spring and summer, so I ended up finding one at a pretty nice apartment complex in my city. The guy, we call him Bob, seemed cool. We had a mutual friend. Everything went great. However, Bob wants the sublease under the table without the office getting involved. Okay, no worries. I've done this before. It's a 4 out of 4 with 3 other male roommates. This is important for later on. I have a 2-year hound mix. She's a great dog, but she gets terrible anxiety during thunderstorms. One day, I'm at work and we have probably the biggest thunderstorm we've had this year. She flips out and tears the edges off the carpet to my room. My dad has a guy who came in and did an estimate on the damages. Told me it would cost between $200 and $400 to recarpet the room. Cool, no problem. I can afford that. Bob sees the damages and I tell him I'll cover the damages caused by her. Anyways, I move out in July, a month passes, I'm on vacation with my family, and this mother lover Bob decides to call my dad and mom repeatedly. Then his mom calls them. I have no idea how they even got my parents' numbers. They tell my parents that the apartment complex is charging them $4,000 for a carpet of 10 by 10 room, that I have until the end of September to pay it or they take me to court. My dad is pissed because he knows the damages shouldn't cost that much. He contracts a leasing office and asks them for a breakdown of the damages. I don't know, but he managed to get them to tell him. The carpet damage in my room would cost $273. All the other charges were for damages the original tenant and his roommates did. So we contact Bob, and he's saying that the other roommates were supporting his claim that my dog had caused all the damages in the house. Firstly, can someone please explain to me how it's my dog's fault that they caused a bottle of wine to explode on the ceiling of the kitchen? Or how she managed to destroy the dishwasher? Or one of the guy's bathtubs? My parents, the lawyer, and me have a little get together. I never signed any document making me an official resident of the apartment. Therefore, I wasn't liable for any damages whatsoever. However, because I'm not an a-hole, I was still willing to pay for the carpet damage. We contact Bob and he refuses the offer of payment. His mom says that she wants me to pay for everything. But no, I'm not going to. Because I'm petty though, I contacted the leasing office. I gave them the documentation of me living there, and now the office is not only charging Bob and the other roommates the $4,000, they are suing for a breach of contract because he had an illegal tenant. They should have just taken the $273. And this is a picture of the real MVP of the story. Oh, so cute. That's exactly what that guy gets. Bob deserves to be screwed like that. Did he really think he was gonna get away with that? Like with no documentation of him living there? He thought he was gonna be able to get him in court. Like what was the judge gonna say? Dumb people do dumb things, and he couldn't just take a nice smart deal to get his carpets fixed. Poor guy. You almost feel bad for him. Okay, on to the r/Nuclearrevenge. Shoot my uncle and disappear? Backstory, this was over 50 years ago, and I'm sure no one involved is still alive. I was told this by my father during a hunting trip when my father was a little drunk one night. 50 years ago, I don't think any of those people even know what Reddit is. On to the story. As said before, this happened over 50 years ago. My father, his brother, and my uncle, and a few of their bike/trucker friends were in a bar drinking. While enjoying the drinks and the music, a small bar fight broke out between two guys a couple of tables away. My uncle has always been a nice guy and would never raise a hand in anger and go out of his way to help others. He gets up, walks over, and separating the two guys and tells them just knock it off and enjoy their beer. My uncle is above 6'8" and was strong as he was tall. The two guys sat down and one just gave my uncle a dirty look. My uncle rejoined my father and his friends and went back to enjoying their drinking. The guy with the dirty look got up and left the bar. My uncle was sitting with his back to the door when the guy came back and walked in right behind my uncle before anyone could act. pulled a gun, and shot my uncle in the back. The guy turned and ran back out of the bar, got into his truck, and drove off. One of my father's friends grabbed the other guy and took him outside and got the information about his friend. I told him to leave town and never come back if he knew what was good for him. They took my uncle to the hospital as it would be faster than waiting for an ambulance back then. The next day, after a long surgery, my uncle was going to survive, but the bullet severed his spine and he would never walk again. Once they knew he was going to live, my father and about 5 other friends took their info they got and tracked down the shooter, busted down his door in the middle of the night, took him and his gun someplace my father would not say. At this place far enough away, no one would ever know or hear what was happening. They beat him up for hours until his arms and legs were pretty much mush, and my father said the man just disappeared that night. The police asked about what happened to my uncle, but was told it happened so fast, nobody saw a thing. The bartender was a friend and said the same. I lost my father over 33 years ago to cancer. And my uncle, well, he lived for a good life until complications to his legs, and they had to be removed, and he passed about 20 years ago. I feel safe on writing this as there is nobody alive connected to that night. God bless my father and his friends for not allowing a coward such as this guy to walk away without a bunch of karma getting him. I miss you, Dad and Uncle Jay. Okay, this guy needs to, that was a good story, but this guy needs to know the difference between no and no. And man, 50 years ago was a scary time. You could just get taken up out of your house and beat to a bloody mush. Though he did deserve that for coming up and shooting that guy in the back for stopping him from getting his butt whooped probably. That is some nuclear revenge. They literally killed a guy. They beat him to death. Jesus. If that's what r/Nuclearrevenge has, I wonder what r/SuperNovaRevenge is about to do. I'm scared. I'm kind of scared right now. For r/SuperNovaRevenge and the rest of them, I intentionally pick short ones because a lot of them are at least 15 paragraphs long, and to read 5 stories of 15 paragraphs long, this video would be like 2 hours long. But psychopathic bully gets his head crushed by one of his victims. This story is from my grandfather and takes place in around 1942 in a small town in Idaho. His memory is bad and so is mine, so I'll take most details with a grain of salt. My grandpa was a tough person, even when he was a child. A bit of a jerkhole, even. But this was the 40s and people were different back then. He was also a small child, and that attracted a lot of bullies. There was one bully, however, who was worse than most. His brothers would actually back him up, but this kid came along after his older brothers moved to a different school, and left him with his younger siblings. This was the 1940s, so the bully got away with absolutely psychopathic levels of beatings, and he would even sometimes involve friends and beat them in a gang. Great-grandfather would do nothing, and he told him to be a man. So he did. One day, Grandpa hid behind a corner of a building, where he knew the bully passed every single day. When the jerko stepped past the corner, Grandpa swung a brick at his head as hard as he could. The kid's skull caved in. Grandpa described it as being like an ashtray, and he hit the ground. Grandpa can't remember if he died or just had severe brain damage, but nobody messed with Grandpa after that. Oh my goodness, the 40s, like the old times, were like, those were different times. Like back then, I bet you he didn't get in trouble. Like kids could just beat you senseless. These days, at least everything is like recorded. So if some kid gets beat to a bloody pulp, like they know, you know, that kid's kind of crazy and he gets shunned. Screw living in the old days. Screw that. Anyways, what do you think? Is that some supernova revenge? Do you think that is the most crazy revenge you've ever heard? Is this sub all it's cracked up to be? I like this story a lot better than I did the story yesterday for the supernova revenge. I think I might just got a bad pick. Anyways, if you like these, let me know down below. Like and subscribe if you want to continue. Today, we'll be sorting by top of all time and be reading the #1 story on r/ProRevenge. The #1 story upvoted by everyone deciding that is on the sub. Decided that this is the #1 best revenge story that is out there. It's the best revenge story on Reddit right now. So this better absolutely blow my socks off. I better be blasted out of this time zone. I'm just kidding. I don't want to hold it that high standards, but this should be really good. If you guys have any suggestions for stuff that you want me to go over, just let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video throughout. Let's get into the video. r/ProRevenge. Coworker tried to get me fired over breast implants, so I pulled a reverse Uno card. 4 years ago now, when I was 24, my mom died of breast cancer. And as both of my grandmothers had also died of it, I saw a specialist for a screening. I found out I had some cells in one of my breasts that could have turned cancerous at any given moment. I was told I have a few options. 1. I could have regular screenings every 3 to 4 months until it does develop into cancer. I was told that the risk of cells becoming cancerous was very high due to the family history. But it could also potentially never could turn, so I'd just be getting these screenings for no reason. 2. I could get a single mastectomy on one breast with the bad cells, but they need to keep an eye on the other one, so I'd still need regular checkups for the other breast. 3. I could get a bilateral mastectomy and remove all my breast tissue, basically eliminating the risk. I went in for the bilateral mastectomy. It was admittedly the most drastic option, but after seeing what cancer did to my mom and grandmothers, I didn't want to risk it. I was warned about scarring, but told it should be fairly minor. It wasn't, and I was left with 2 huge pink jagged scars on either side of my chest, each about 1 inch long and 1/2 inch wide, and it caused me to go into severe depression, where it got to the stage of me not even leaving my flat because I didn't want people to see me, throwing out my mirrors and getting physically sick looking at myself. I went to a therapist who suggested a plastic surgeon. The therapist said they'd never normally do it, but it was clearly something I was struggling with, and I might never get over it, and the therapist could see I was struggling with it. Although, I'll admit, the therapist did send me to ask about scar reduction. The plastic surgeon suggested a cream, a laser, or implants. The cream didn't work, and the lasers were both expensive and risky, so I went with the implants. My natural boobs were an F cup, so I went with a slightly smaller double D, since my mental health was improved, and I feel a lot better about the way I look. My confidence has gone up, and as my self-esteem. I know I shouldn't put so much into my appearance, but I wasn't exaggerating about these scars. Huge, bright pink, jagged, raised, just awful to look at, and I hated seeing myself. And they are now nicely hidden away, and you could barely feel them. In the present day, I'm 28 years old and working in an office. I'm doing a lot better than I was. My coworker, Jill, found out that I had a boob job, but not about the cancer thing. When myself and my friend from years before the mastectomy were planning a holiday, and she made a joke about me going on a plane with my implants, and Jill overheard. By the end of the day, the entire office knew I had a boob job, but not why, and half a dozen people confirmed that Jill had told them. Over the next few months, Jill made many jokes and comments about my chest to coworkers when I was in earshot, at one point saying I had more plastic than Barbie, and calling me fake in 2 ways. I didn't hear this one myself, but my friend in the office told me that Jill had at one point referred to me as sack of silicone. I don't care what her problem was exactly, but at one point she mentioned the NHS, so I'll assume Jill thought I had got my tits done for free on taxpayer money. I had gotten the mastectomy on NHS, but gone private for the therapy and implants. I asked her to stop more than once, but unfortunately the places I had talked to her were places like the lift and the woman's bathroom, where there weren't any cameras, and Jill just kept making comments no matter how often I asked her not to. I wouldn't say it was every single day, but I heard at least 3 comments per week for 3 months. I hit my breaking point when me, Jill, and a few other coworkers were having lunch. I referred to something as being shallow, and Jill said, "You know all about being shallow," while gesturing to my chest. I snapped. I said, "Do you know why I have these? A few years ago, the doctors found potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue. I was advised to get a mastectomy and was left with huge ugly scars on my chest. I went to see a therapist who sent me to a cosmetic surgeon who advised me to get implants to hide my scars. And I did, just so I could look at myself in the mirror without crying. So maybe next time you want to judge someone for having cosmetic surgery, you should ask them why they had it first." And feeling like that was the mic drop moment, I picked up my food and left. For the rest of the day, I had about 1/3 of the office come up to me and offer support, and the rest tell me that Jill was just joking around, and I was being a B. I replied that Jill was being a B long before I was. I got an email from HR saying they wanted to talk to me the following day, and when I called for clarification, they mentioned a hostile work environment. This is apparently an American term and holds little weight in England, but it's what was said over the phone. I knew the person who signed off on the email and I'd spoken to. Her name was Debbie, and she was Jill's friend in HR, so I was fairly confident who had reported me. I realized that if she was already being sent to HR, I needed as much as ammunition as possible, so I went about collecting information. As Debbie had dealt with me so far, it was safe to assume she would be the person reviewing the complaint with me. And if that was true, I was screwed. However, I vaguely remember a section of complaints that was in my contract when I first signed with the company. I flicked through the contract and there was a part in complaint section that said I was contractually allowed to request a change of reviewer if I felt my allocated reviewer was biased. It was called an impartial overseer. I photocopied the page and highlighted that part. When I messaged the people who had offered their support over Facebook and said basically, HR have asked to see me. Do you remember Jill insulting me to your face, or are you willing to write and sign something saying that you have heard and when? Not everyone was willing to help, as Jill was somewhat feared in the office due to her befriending HR and management, but about 20 people were willing to help me. I guessed roughly when I asked Jill to stop previously. The 4 asks were over the last few months. Some timings were easy to guess as they'd happen on my break or when I first arrived at work, and I wrote them all down, along with a rough time of when the lunchroom confrontation happened and a list of names who was there for the lunchroom confrontation. I got to work slightly early the next morning. I went around everyone who had messaged me, and most of them managed to give me a printed and signed letter. Some didn't manage to write one, but no big deal. This isn't the exact words, as there's 16 letters to sum up here, but the gist was, my name is, then their name. I work with Jill, an OP. On the date and time approximately, I spoke with Jill, during which she referred to OP as an insult. I felt as it was inappropriate, as it directly related to OP's appearance, and I'm willing to go on record further to establish that Jill has been discussing OP in the workplace in the same manner for 3 months now, causing me discomfort and creating what I feel is a hostile work environment. Signed, their name. I wound up with about 16 letters, all from different people, and one of them was in the lunchroom for my conversation with Jill. Some have even bullet-pointed list of everything Jill had said to them about me or other people. As it turns out, Jill has an issue with a lot of people's appearance. She apparently made comments about one coworker's weight and something anti-Semitic about different coworkers' nose, all of which were put into these letters. There were about 45 people in the office, so while 16 wasn't a majority, it was still a decent amount. The letters weren't hugely long, most were only a paragraph, but they had all the necessary information. I was asked to come to HR at 10 a.m. I took the letters from my coworkers, then photocopied a page of my contract, and my dates and times in my little folder with me. I got there, and Debbie was the one overseeing the interview. She got up from her desk, ready to lead me into another room. I immediately turned to the HR worker that was currently there and said, "So is my meeting with you, then?" Debbie said, "No, you're with me." I replied that this wouldn't sit well with me, as my contract states I have a right to an impartial overseer. And as I said this, I took the contract page out of my folder. Debbie read it. I wouldn't let her take the paper when there was a shredder so close by, and said she could be impartial. I replied that I really don't mean to be a pain, but it had to be on good authority that the person on the other end of this complaint is her friend, and my contract does say I'm allowed an impartial overseer. Debbie stomped off to get the supervisor. Supervisor asked how I know she can't be impartial, and I tell her that I have it on good authority that the Jill, who was on the other end of this complaint, is a close friend with Debbie. He asked Debbie if this was true, to which she only said, "I can be impartial." Supervisor took a deep breath, asked the other HR rep to come with him, and the 4 of us all went to review the complaint. I thanked them for being so accommodating. I was worried I'd annoy them. Debbie took out the complaint, and all 3 of them went through it with me. Debbie looked homicidal the whole time that the interview was happening, as she had clearly anticipated firing me, or at least recommending me be fired. The interview went something like this. It took over half an hour, and they kept asking me the same question, but phrasing it in different ways, so this is a really drastically condensed version. Question: You said outside you think Jill reported you. Why is this? Answer: Jill has had an issue with me for about 3 months now. Question: Why didn't you come to us when you realized Jill had an issue? Answer: Cause I had no issue with her. Question: What issue does Jill have with you? Answer: 4 years ago, a specialist identified potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue. I had surgery to remove my breast tissue, thereby removing the cells and the risk. After the surgery, I was left with large scars on my chest and went to a therapist for low self-esteem and depression. The therapist suggested a plastic surgeon who suggested breast implants to cover those scars. All of this is in my medical history, which you have a copy of in file, and my full permission to review. Jill found out about my breast implants, but didn't know about the cancer. Jill had a problem with my breast implants, and then decided to communicate this problem with our co-workers. Question: Why do you feel this is true? Answer: Here's 16 signed statements from all different co-workers, all testifying that Jill told the entire office I had breast implants on the day she found out, and has since made comments about these implants frequently. They have quotes of what Jill said to them about it in rough dates and times. Question: Rough dates and times? Answer: No one knew this would be escalated to such an extent, so no one really took notes as of when it happened. Question: What event or events do you think directly led to this complaint of harassment? Answer: For the harassment, for me, harassment began when Jill told everyone about my breast implants without my consent. But as for the complaint against me, it would probably be what happened about yesterday in the lunchroom. Jill made a comment about me being shallow while gesturing to my breast, and I replied by giving her an abridged version of my relevant medical history and ending with a comment about the importance of getting the full story. There were cameras in the lunchroom, so I'm sure you'll be able to find that conversation. I'll admit, I could have handled the situation better, but after 3 months, I felt I had to put my foot down. Here's a list of the names of people who were also present. There were 6 people at the table, including myself and Jill. One of these people is also in those letters and has written their account of the conversation and signed it. Question: had you had a conversation with Jill prior to this regarding her comments about you? Answer: several, spaced out over the last 3 months. Each time I communicated with her, I felt uncomfortable and upset at these comments and would appreciate if they were to stop. Question: to your knowledge, was Jill made aware of your former cancer at any point in time? Answer: no, it wasn't mentioned in the conversation with my friends when she overheard, and I didn't tell her because frankly, it's none of her business, and I did not feel the need to detail my medical history to my coworker in order to avoid further sexual harassment. Supervisor stands up and says, well, I think we're done here. He shakes my hand and sends me back to my desk, saying I'd hear from them after they reviewed the evidence, letters, CCTV, medical history, and anything they had already, and made a decision on the case. I got back to my desk, pulled up my CV, and prepared to start the job search again. About an hour goes by, then the person who wrote the letter and was there for the lunchroom conversation gets called to the meeting with HR. They come back 10-ish minutes later. The other people who were also there for the lunchroom conversation got called in one by one, except Jill. All of them were gone for about 10 minutes, then come back, find a coworker, say that the HR wants to see them. Then, the people who wrote the letters but weren't there yesterday are also called in one by one, and each are gone for about 10 minutes each, some longer, some shorter. By about 3:30, it looks like everyone who wrote the letter or was there in the lunchroom had been interviewed. Then, finally, Jill gets called in. She's gone for about 30 minutes and comes back fuming. She glares at me while I work, but I ignore her. 4:30ish, Jill gets called into HR again. 5 p.m. rolls around. Everyone is either leaving or getting ready to leave. When Jill storms back into the office, she glares at me the whole time, packs up her desk. She starts to tell everyone who will listen to her that she got fired before shoving her face into the lift. An email comes from HR. My case is closed. Edit: I just wanted to add that regardless of my reasons for getting implants, it still should not have been harassed over them. It happened to be relevant here because it made Jill look like a real dick, which should probably be why she reported me. The top comment says, paper trails are often the undoing of petty, vindictive people. I've seen several times in my life providing said paper trail usually, and it's always satisfying. This one was exceptionally satisfying. Bonus, now you can tell people that your breasts are so magnificent they get people fired. I mean, if you want to. Wow, that is a good story. I can't believe they fired her so quickly. By the end of the day, boom, she was gone. Like, what really changed everything was her going in and finding where she could have someone impartial to look over the situation and actually bringing the supervisor and another HR rep to come in there. And the thing is, she pretty much fired herself. Jill fired herself because she's the one that put in the complaint that got her fired. What a genius. It's more like an idiot revenge. She got revenge on herself somehow. But bravo to her. That probably feels like such a big win in the office. Imagine having to work by someone that is always commenting on your appearance and feeling so down about that. And now, boom, they're gone. You could finally work in peace. I wonder if every one of those people like told the truth when we went there about the lunchroom, or if they were like Jill's friend and some of them were like, I never heard that happen. I will say this is a 9 out of 10. My favorite story ever still, I can't top this one, is the one I read like a month or 2 ago about that lady that was in the school or whatever, and she was like a teacher. That was the best revenge of all time. I'm not sure if anything is ever gonna replace that. She got an entire school shut down and a bunch of people she hated fired and stuff. This though is still a very good story. There's reasons why it has so much upvotes. I don't know if that's just for boobs or because, you know, it's good. Anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed the #1 story on r/ProRevenge. If any story ever tops this, I will read that. If you want me to read the top stories on any other sub, just let me know down below in the comments. I take suggestions all the time. Remember at the beginning of the video, I said don't forget to like and subscribe. If you did that, thank you. That helps out a lot. I'm not sure how much because I'm still kind of new at this, but thank you. What's up you guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. I'm sorry I've been gone for like 4 days. Pokemon Sword and Shield came out 4 days ago, and I have logged almost 52 hours within the time period. It's kind of a little much, but I was really excited for that game, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna take a little vacation. On the other news, shout out to Eon. We're gonna be reading your story first. Thank you so much for submitting it in r/EntitleedParents. If you guys would like to, you can click the link down below and you can go straight to the story and upload it for yourself. On that note, let's get into the story. EA thinks my cousin is required by law to cover her nephew's medical bills for a minor injury that happened outside the daycare my cousin works at. Okay, I'm sorry if I don't detail much. I'm pretty much going off of what my cousin told me and whatever little bit I saw. Also, I think this happened around mid-August this year. Here's some context. My cousin, who I will call C, works at a daycare. It's one of the few daycares in our small town, and all of our members are really nice, so C grew used to this. Like I said, this happened around August. Entitled Aunt, EA, moved to our area a month before her nephews. EA didn't really familiarize herself with the neighbors, but I thought nothing of it. I really don't know why EA was taking care of her nephew exactly, but we only knew she had legal custody of him. She came in with her 4-year-old nephew, In, and told the receptionist that she wanted to bring In to C's daycare. Our receptionist, who legit has the patience of a saint, told her that she can absolutely sign up, and then directed her to head over to me to get the contract and agreements. So she came to sign them. She came over, took the clipboard with the contact, and then she didn't even think for a second to read it, but signed it anyways. Then, she filled out the background of the child. Are you the legal guardian of the child? Is there any medicine that we have to administer to the child? Etc. Basic stuff. Usually, we allowed the first day as a trial day. EA comes back after the trial day, and presumably in a worse mood, and directs into the room where the first class was, without paying. C, who was a worker on shift for watching the kids that day, asked EA if she paid yet for the season. She didn't, and she said to C that she wasn't told to do so for her first session, to which she tells her to go to the receptionist and pay, which she does, but angrily. She drops $10 on the table. Our receptionist points out to the sign saying 34. She then smacks a 20 and a 5 on the table. She doesn't take the change, and then blasts out the door. EA was bringing In for around 2 weeks, and once classes ended, she came somewhat late to pick him up. C usually lets the kids play in the playground across the street while the parents come. In was playing on the platform part of the park when EA came. In was told it was time to go, so In was trying to get down, and when halfway down, trips and falls into the wood chips. Now, EA was there, so therefore, C was not technically the person liable for any injuries. EA ran to In, and he did have a really big bruise on his wrist, but he wasn't moving it. The EA picked him up and went up to the C, and here's what I heard. I was in the car because I was with C that day, and she drops him off home after work. EA, how dare you let In fall and get hurt? This isn't professional. You probably aren't even licensed. Now In's broke his wrist. C, as stated in your contract, we can't be liable after hours. EA, but you were here, and it was your daycare here. C, we have permission to use the park so the children are occupied when they wait for someone to pick them up. You weren't here, and it's after hours, so we aren't liable. EA, we will see about that, and then stomp to her car. 2 weeks will pass, and we'll get a call from someone we don't recognize. Our receptionist picks up to find someone claiming to be EA's attorney. He was asking for C, and when she picked up, she said it was a lawsuit filed. She was actually trying to sue the company for negligence and medical bills. Let's just say the signed contract backed up the daycare. We don't hear much from them anymore, and there was rumors she moved away. Dang, what an entitled jerk. How about you come pick up your kids on time? How about that one? Don't you just... I just feel so bad for the kids that have to live with moms or guardians that act so entitled like that. Like, what are you teaching your kid? You're trying to teach them to act the same exact way, and they're gonna have a tough time growing up just because you wanted to be a jerkhole while they were a little kid. So that was a story from someone down in the comments. If you guys have any of the stories that you want me to read during these videos, just let me know down in the comments. You can link them down below. I allow links in my comment sections. I'll click on it, read them up, boom, bada bing, bada boom, done. On to another entitled parent story. Eam demands a slushie. So, while I was a senior in high school, I worked in a Kmart for Xmas season. One night, at about 10 p.m., right before closing, a mother and daughter walked in. The daughter looked like she was in pain, and the mother makes a beeline for me. EM, excuse me, can my daughter have a slushie? A bit of context, the Kmart I worked in was one that had a pizza chain in it. When open, served slushies. Me, I'm sorry, I don't work for the pizza chain. I can't get you a slushie. EM, my daughter just had her wisdom teeth pulled, and she needs a slushie to help her with the pain. I knew that it would make her daughter's situation a bit worse by causing a dry socket, plus only pizza chain employees were allowed to turn on the slushie machine or any beverage machine in the section. Me, I can try, but like I said, I'm not authorized to turn on the machine. EM, just try. I proceeded to poop a cup and find a way to turn on the machine. Actually, I was just going through the motions. Me, I'm sorry, I can't find a way to turn on the machine. EM, well, at least you can get her a soda or a water. My daughter's in pain. Me, I told you already that only pizza chain employees can turn the machines on in their area, and they are closed. You are welcome to buy a bottle of water before we close. EM, my daughter is in pain from her surgery and wants a slushie. If you can't get it, I will tell your manager. My manager arrived after seeing this on the camera, wondering why I haven't finished my closing duties. Asked me what's going on. EM, your employee won't give my daughter a slushie. Manager, well, he's not authorized to turn on the machine since only the pizza chain employees can do that, and they are closed at this time. The daughter and EM walk off in a big huff. I felt sorry for the daughter at this time. Some people's parents. Some of these trigger me when I read these. I'm just like, that poor kid. Like I just want to smack that lady. I'm like, not actually smack that lady. Like I'm not violent, but you know what I mean. She needs to be slapped by somebody. Jesus, slap her, please. Anyways, that's what she said was totally correct about not slurping through a straw causing dry sockets. I had to get 8 teeth extracted, not because they were like rotten or anything. I didn't have a cavity, but I had to get my 4 wisdom teeth taken out, and then I have really big canine teeth. They look really similar to what a vampire's teeth would look like. They're really sharp and really big. I was just born with them, so they're the size of about 1.5 of a tooth. So they had to take out the 4 teeth behind my top and bottom canine teeth. So I had to get 8 teeth extracted all at once. They actually had to put me into like they had to put me to sleep because they had to like drill underneath my bone under one side of my jaw to get my wisdom tooth out. But yeah, this is the reason I have braces now. But long story short, at the end they told me not to slurp anything to a straw, not to like, if you smoke, you don't want to smoke any cigarettes because any of that slurping motion could cause a dry socket. So hopefully this girl didn't go home and slurp a slushie and smoke a cigarette at the same time. I've heard it's not worth it. Just do not do it. If you're a smoker, I promise you that little bit of waiting is going to be a lot easier than if you have a dry socket. But back to that story. This is the thing that I can't stand about people is like, why can't you understand like people can't just do things just because you say so? That's like going into McDonald's and being like, I don't care, get me a Whopper now. Like, lady, what? What are you talking about? Like, what do you expect me to do really? Some people have just always gotten their way by throwing a fit, and they think that throwing a fit can just get them anything. And that's how an entitled parent is born. I think that most entitled parents came from other parents that either let them be entitled as a kid or they got to watch their parents be entitled and learn that. Monkey see, monkey do. And yes, your kid's a little monkey, you entitled parent. No, I'm just kidding. The kid didn't do anything wrong. They were probably high on whatever they give you. I can't even remember what I took. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's probably short. I haven't even been recording that long. If you guys have any suggestions of subs that you want me to cover, just let me know down below. I have a Patreon down below. You can just look at it if you want to. Just look at it. I'm still just happy it got accepted. If you guys want to submit a story just like the person in the first story did, just like I said, link your story down in the comments. I'll click it. I'll read it. Doesn't matter if it has -5 million upvotes. I'll read it because thank you for the suggestion. I love when you guys interact and I love when you guys comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video. Wait, subscribe the video? What the freak are you talking about, Reddit readings? You idiot or something? Thank you guys so much for watching and goodbye, my lovelies.